something to say.
Hello everybody, how you doing today? My name's Charlie. You might know me better as sci-fi fantasy writer C.E. Dorset. How y'all doing? I'm doing pretty good today. I had a really bad day yesterday, with like leg cramps and leg pain and pain and pain and pain. But I promised a happy episode. So I figured, what's the happier that I could talk about from me, that I could. Then the basic question, so you want to be a writer? Yeah. So let's start with some basics. And the basics are none too pretty. They really aren't. Every month, well, let's just do it every year, in the United States alone, 1 million books get published. Yeah, at least. I don't know if that even includes all of the self-published stuff, or even the stuff that goes up on like Wattpad or Smashwords, which Smashwords is indie publishing, kind of. Well, it is. But, you know, I'm not sure if that includes everything, but that's still a lot. And while some of that's just retreads of things that have come out before, a lot of that is people writing in my chosen genre. Yeah, it's either sci-fi fantasy writers publishing their stuff, and yeah. So, what about book sales? Book sales have to be there, right? Well, just so you know, the vast majority of books will never sell more than 250 copies in their lifetime. Yeah, sorry to break it to you. 250. So, yeah, I know I promised that I was going to do a happy episode, and I am going to get there. I am. I just felt like we have to start from a very real place. I get really frustrated because a lot of writers, when they talk about writing, especially in a podcast or on YouTube, not all of them, but a lot of them, while they don't make it out to be a get-rich-quick scheme, well, I take that back. I've actually seen some that kind of did, and like, there's so much anger and frustration in me over that there are no words. With very few exceptions of people that had connections with the industry, had written decent books, and had ruby dust spread on them in the middle of the night by magical fairies who allowed them to actually have the success that they ended up having. Very few writers ever get wealthy from doing it. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from writing. I'm really not. I just feel like not nobody, a lot of people don't talk about the struggles that are quite real when it comes to actually writing for a living or writing full time, like I do. So what are we left with? Why even try? If the vast majority of books published are never going to sell more than 250 copies, and let's be really generous and say that you're selling them at a rate that usually will be okay on Amazon, because let's be honest, that's where a lot of the stuff sells. It's $250. You may be able to get $2 a book. That's $500 a book, and not a lot. And yes, I know there are a lot of people making more than that, and they're very vocal about the fact that they make more than that. But it is a reality of the industry to understand that, you know, not everyone who decides to be an actor is going to be in a Marvel movie or a Netflix show, even though they keep greenlighting so many Netflix shows that eventually that might be inevitable. But, you know, this is a very hard industry to make it in if you are wanting to do it for money. And money should be the last concern when getting involved. I'm not saying that you shouldn't think about it. I'm one of those people who probably thinks about it way too much. I give a lot of thought to how I'm going to market and sell my books, which is one of the reasons why, if you want to help keep me from doing that, you can go over to patreon.com/CE Dorset, so I don't have to think about that much, because I have a regular income and can actually just hunker down and work on stories, which I would be much happier doing. But, you know, it's not easy. It's tricksy. And if you don't know what you're getting into, there can be a lot of disappointment. But there shouldn't. Because if you're not writing because you either feel like you need to write, or you love to write, or there's something in the process that you couldn't imagine yourself not doing, then this really shouldn't be a place for you. Like, I hear writers talking about how it's their day job, And I think I talk about it like that too, because there's a certain amount of professionalism that you need to bring to your work, that you show up every day and you are hammering out words that you can fix in edits, even if they're not good. And there is a certain amount of professionalism there. And I highly recommend a book called The War of Art, I believe it's called, that talks a lot about this and is one of those books that I think every creative should read at least once in their life. That and How to Make Sense of Any Mess. Read both of those. Um, Very good books. And I don't know the people who wrote either one, and I get nothing for shilling them, but I would gladly shill for them. You should only write or get into writing if it's something deep within you. Like, I love telling stories, and I love building worlds, and I love drawing and doodling and doing all this stuff. Like, I would be doing this whether or not I was able to try to make money or not. Like, I have written stories and drawn pictures and all this stuff since I was a kid. Like, this is just who I am. It's how I relate to the world. You know, I write to understand things. When something confuses me, I pull out a journaling app on my phone and just start typing, because that process of putting words together and writing it out is how I principally understand the world. And I'm not saying you have to be like me or writers like Terry Brooks, who, for writers like us, it seems more of an almost compulsion to write, to tell these stories. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying that if it's not some kind of a compulsion, you probably won't be able to stick with it. It is grueling. People are mean. People are terrible, to be honest with you. Like, I meet people and they ask me what I do. I tell them I'm a writer, and they say, well, what do you write? And, you know, if I want to, you know, completely shut down the conversation and not deal with it, because I have a feeling of where it's going, I'll say that I write kind of a high fantasy version of Xianxia, and I watch their eyes glaze over because there was words in there that were not English, and we go on with the rest of the night. And that works really well. It's actually a very honest way of describing what I do. I kind of write what if Xianxia met Western fantasy? That's kind of my thing. I really enjoy that, with a little bit of Japanese and Irish fantasy in there for fun, because I'm really into those things. Yeah, that's what I do for a living. I play with my imaginary friends. That's actually one of the answers that I usually give, also. Because that's what I do. I love writing. I love telling stories. I love working with these characters and building these worlds. And I have a timeline, an Aeon timeline, that covers thousands of years of world history and events that will probably never make it into a book, or may never make it onto the website. And people will only know about if I ever decide to share my timeline with them, which I'm not going to do because it has spoilers in it. And people are against spoilers. But, you know, it's what I do. It's what I love doing. I love creating languages. I love drawing pictures. I love thinking about how these societies might work. I love writing these characters and finding out about their lives and sharing their lives. That's why you should be a writer. Yeah, of course. I want people to buy my books. I want people to read my books. That's why they're up on Wattpad, because I want you to read them. It's more important for someone like me that you read them than that I make money off them. And don't get me wrong, I want to make money off my book. I'd rather make money off the Patreon, because then I wouldn't be so focused off the books. Because I actually enjoy the world building as much, if not more, than the writing. And so here we are. The crux of this entire thing. So you want to be a writer. Why? I don't think a lot of people answer that question. I don't think a lot of people get asked that question in a meaningful way. I know I get asked that question a lot, and it's usually from the point of view of, oh, you're a writer. Why? You know, that kind of looking down on you, like, really? That's what you do? Okay. No, seriously, why do you want to be a writer? You may have a book that you just want to write. You may have a story that you just want to tell. And with National Novel Writing Month less than a month away now is the perfect time to tell that story. But you have to ask yourself, why do you want to tell it? Because you need something to hold on to. Writing is hard. I couldn't even count how many people throughout my life have told me their story of how they're writing a book. And they look at me in amazement because I have finished quite a few. Not as many as I would like, but quite a few. And it's not magic. It's hard. It's difficult work. Writing is not for everybody. If you're not willing to put in all of the work that it takes to write a book, you should kind of know that up front. And the only way you get through all that writing is because there's a reason you want to tell this story. And I wanted to finish Crucify My Love, which was a book that I didn't have an outline for. I had a few rough ideas for characters and kind of like, what if this happened, then that happened, then that happened, kind of an idea. And every day I showed up and more story happened, and I had to tell the story because I needed to know how it ended. I needed to know how it ended. Whether anybody else ever read it or not, I needed to know how it ended. I loved these characters. I loved the story. I loved this world. I loved this setting. And I had to know how it ended. That's what got me up every day. When I got a cold in the middle of National Novel Writing Month and didn't feel like sitting up, and it was really hard to type because I kept sneezing and sneezing and sneezing and sneezing and blowing my nose and sneezing and didn't feel like hitting my word counts, I pushed through to get my word count done for the day because I needed to know what happened that day. I am the biggest fan of my own fiction. And I know some writers who think that that's a bad idea, but I don't know how you finish a book without that being true. Because it's not just the writing. The writing is a slog. No matter how much you enjoy the book going into it, at a certain point, you've been doing this so much that you don't want to do it anymore. It's a marathon. It's a hard slog to get to the end and to get those final words into the book. Not to mention the editing that follows. That's even harder work. And so when I ask you, so you want to be a writer, why? Don't think I'm trying to turn you off. I'm trying to help you. If you're going to be a writer, if it's something that you want to do, even if it's just that one book that you want to tell, that one story you want to tell, you need to have a damn good reason to tell that story that you can hold on to. Write it down. What is that reason? Why are you doing this? And if it's to get money, you will probably be disappointed. Well, you might be one of the lucky few, and you might be able to do all the marketing just right. But major success as a writer is much more of a lottery than people want to give it credit for. Moderate success as a writer is something to shoot for where you're making a living off of what you're doing. That's a big difference. Different thing, different animal altogether. But if you think you're going to be the next J.K. Rowling or Cassandra Clare or fill in the blank writer who got really big, really, apparently fast, check yourself. You might have the wrong motives. Because, wanting to be the next J.R.R. Tolkien is not going to get you through the hard work of writing that book, editing that book, and marketing that book. That's not a good enough motivation. You have to want it. You have to want it more than anything that you've ever wanted to get through that. And that's why I think a lot of people are just being self-deprecating when they talk about their work as work. There are so many easier jobs out there than writing, editing, and marketing a book. That if it was just a job for them, they'd be doing those other things. Because this is not an easy job to have. That's also why so many books come out of here. People think it's easy. And, well, most first-time novelists never do a second. So really ask yourself, why do you want to write? Are you like me? Do you love telling these stories? Are these stories that you're not finding elsewhere? Like, I've seen shades of some of the things that I'm doing with the Mask of the Gods books, but nothing that looks like what I'm wanting to do. And to a lot of people, especially book one, might look like a standard Chosen One story, but that's not where it's going. At least I hope that's not where it's going. That's not where it told me it's going. And we'll see when we get there. Is it fresh and original and something that no one's ever seen before? I'm sure you could sit down and probably cobble together most of its parts from other things, because that's how all stories are. But it's the story I wanted, it's the story I need, and it's the story I really want to tell and see the end of, and I can't find anywhere else. So I'm going to tell that story because I'm entertaining myself first and foremost. That's the writing, and then comes the editing and the marketing, which are the parts that I really... But I have drive now because I have the book finished, and I love the book so much, I want other people to be able to read it. Which means I have to get the editing done, and I have to edit it as good as it can possibly be, and then the marketing has to be done, or nobody's going to know it exists, and if nobody knows it exists, they're not going to read it. And so my motive drives me all the way through the process, and you need to find that for yourself, because without that, there's no getting through. Especially something like Nano. If you're planning to do National Novel Writing Month in November, that's 30 days of writing. If you write every day, that's like 1,600 words a day, 1,700 words a day, every day. I take off weekend. Because I tried doing the everyday thing, and that drives me crazy. Which means my typical word count goal is 2,400 words a day. That's my target for National Novel Writing Month. That's insane. That's a lot of writing. Not for some people. Some people are gifted that words just, I don't know, spray out of them a lot faster. And I don't know if I'm a slow typer or a slow thinker or what, because I'll think like, wow, I just spent an hour writing, and then I look at the clock and I'm like, I just spent 6 hours writing. I don't know, maybe I daydream too much when I'm writing. I don't know. But having said all that, it's a slug. It gets hard. It's a marathon that's coming up. 50,000 words in 30 days. And I invite you to take on that challenge. If you think that there's even a modicum of a story that you might be able to tell it. Find a way to tell it. It's worth the effort. It's worth it, man. There is so much wonderful that comes from writing a story. There's so much you learn about yourself, about your mind, how your mind works, how your imagination works. Sometimes you even learn things about how you see the world that you didn't know was the way you saw the world until you heard a character say it, because you wrote it down and you went, huh, yeah, that is kind of the way I see things. And that can be a powerful moment. Because the first draft, and this is where I'm going to get pilloried by a lot of other writers, the first draft should be for you. Yeah, you might want to think of somebody else when you're writing. That does help. I think about my husband and my sister who often read my fiction because I know them well and I know the kinds of stuff that they like. I often think about them, but the books I've actually enjoyed writing the most were the books that I wrote for me. Like when I wrote The Chain, I wrote that because I couldn't think of anything else like it, and I just wanted to write that book. And I wrote that book, I wrote it for me, I enjoyed every minute of writing that book. I did, I loved it. I despised the editing because I always despise the editing, but that's just the person that I am, right? And that's what I'm trying to get from you, right? What do you want? What makes you want to tell a story? You have to find it, and it has to be good. Because when the nights are long and full of terrors, how are you going to get those words out? How's that word count going to get there? Especially if you're wanting to win at Nano. It's one of the reasons why I love National Novel Writing Month so much is I'm not a very competitive person. Like if you put me in a game with somebody else, I'll almost always ask, is there a co-op version? Because I'm not a very competitive person when it comes to that. But this idea of, like, you know, I don't care if I'm the first or the last person to finish the book. I don't care. But that challenge to myself of, I'm going to get to 50,000 words. I'm going to do that. That's a thing that's going to happen. That's the thing I'm going to do. I'm able to give that challenge to myself, and because I state it publicly and because I have a large group of people also trying to do it at the same time, it gives me the strength to carry through, even when my own motives sometimes fail, because I want to hit that 50K. I want to get there. I love hitting that 50K. It's such a rush because it is a marathon. I love telling stories. I love seeing these worlds unfold in front of me. I love finding out about these different cultures and all the things about them. Like, it's hard for me to even explain how much I enjoy every process of writing except for the editing. And the thing I don't like about the editing, just to explain that, if you've never actually gone through this process, is by the time you're done editing, you will have looked at that document, whatever you're editing, so many times, it's dots and dashes on a sheet of paper, and the words have lost all meaning. Because every word, every sentence, every paragraph has been scrutinized so many times that, you know, the magic wears off. That's a tricksy thing. That's why I haven't edited Crucify yet. Because I want to get Sanctify and Glorify written first, and then go through and do the editing for all three at once, which is going to be a monster task. But it keeps me from losing any of the fervor that I currently have, because I'm still running off of the high of getting Crucify written. And the words haven't started losing their shine, because I haven't spent really that much time looking at them and fixing them and repairing it. So you want to be a writer. Do it. Yeah, I don't really need the competition, because you may be better than me. I don't care. I want to read your book. April Daniels is a better writer than I am. At least when it comes to superhero fiction. I feel challenged now. Honestly, ever since I started reading the Nemesis books, I've wanted to write a superhero book just because I've never tried that before. And she's such a good writer. She's such a good writer. I love her stuff so much. Yeah, there are a lot of people that I think are a lot better than I am. She's one of them. I know it's controversial nowadays to say it, but I think J.K. Rowling's one of them. I think her writing is a lot better. I'm striving. Her words seems so effortless. I don't think I'm at that yet. I'm working on it. And maybe she doesn't feel that they are either, and it's just because I'm reading them. I don't know. But whatever you want to do, whatever story you want to tell, find an excuse, find a way, find a reason. Get your outline done if you're an outliner. If you're not, have enough information done that you can pants your way through. Join me on that. And go for it. Because there's nothing for me in this world greater than writing. There isn't. It's the greatest joy that I have in my day. It's the most wonderful thing that I get to do. And trust me, if you're meant to be a writer, you'll have that kind of experience too. And people get really mad at me when I say things like meant to be. I think writing is a vocation. I think we have vocations. I think there are certain talents that are inborn in us that if we follow them just enough, we'll learn exactly how wonderful they are for us. Because I don't think writing's for everybody. I think a lot of people will find it a slog. I think a lot of people will find it a drag, especially when they realize how much goes into it, especially if they want it to be a good story. It can be a very overwhelming field. Don't let anybody talk you out of trying. And have very realistic goals. You know, for every book that I do, honestly, getting finished is my first goal. My second goal is talking with somebody who's read it. I then make other goals like for marketing and stuff after that, but, you know, yeah. I'm fairly simple that way because I'm on to writing the next one because it's what I love to do. It's my favorite thing. And I hope if you're interested in writing, you discovered that it's your favorite thing. I really do. Was that happy enough? I don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow. We'll find out tomorrow. If you like this and the app that you're listening to me in allows you to rate either this episode or the podcast itself, please do that. That really does help me out a lot. If you know anybody who needs to hear this, please share with them, especially this episode. If you know anybody who's thinking about writing, share this episode with them because it's you hear me? If somebody shared this episode with you and you got this far, it's because you want to be a writer. Write. Just hit me up on Twitter and I'll help you get through. We'll be writing buddies. We'll get through this together. It's going to be hard. You're going to hit the wall at some point, and we're going to push through and get to that 50K, even if that's not the end of your book, because my book's going to be longer than 50K. But I'm going to get 50,000 words written. We'll do it together. If you want to leave me a message, go to anchor.fm/Project Shadow, download your copy of the Anchor app, and you can leave me a 1-minute message. Keep it clean, and if it's good, I will use it on the show. It can be a comment, question, or an idea that you want me to talk about. That would be awesome. Like I said, you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm CE Dorset on Twitter. You can find a link to that and all my social media on projectshadow.com. If you want to financially help me out in whatever you're listening to me on, in the show notes section or sometimes in the app itself, there'll be a support button or it'll say support on Anchor. If you click that, you can support me at the $1, $5, $10 a month level. That really does help me out a lot. I enjoy doing these podcasts, but they take me away from my first love, which is writing. So if you would help me get that done, make a little money doing this, that would be awesome. Like I said, if you want to support everything that I do, head over to Project Shadow. I'm sorry. Yeah, head over to projectshadow.com. You'll find links to all this. If you go to patreon.com/CE Dorset, you can support me on there, and that's for everything, including my fiction. And yeah, thank you all so much for listening. I hope this was helpful for somebody out there. And until next time, don't forget, have the fun. Bye.